What's up? What's up? This your boy JG back with another video on music tips and reviews with JG. Thank y'all for tuning in, and please subscribe if you haven't already, so you'll be updated on all my latest content. Took a little break, haven't been making videos like I usually do. You know, life, life happens. You be busy with other things. Appreciate y'all for tuning in to this episode. I'm ranking one of my favorite artists of all time, Musiq Soulchild. I remember seeing him live 1 or 2 years ago, dope concert, and him just going through all his hits. It's like, wow, you sit back and you realize, like, this dude had a lot of, this artist had a lot of hits, and it takes you back to certain memories, certain times in your life, and Musiq is really one of that artists that he really has a lot of hits, a lot of underrated hits. Even looking at him on Versus, he was against Anthony Hamilton. It's like, wow, you really you realize, like, this dude had a lot of songs that a lot of people love, and history. His album, Aijuswanaseing, was the first CD I ever got, when I was young. That was my first CD, and I played that. I played that album out. My parents can, my parents can tell you, I played that album out almost every day on a boombox. I had a little cheap boombox, but I used to play that album all the time. I Just Want to Sing with Love, Merry-Go-Round, Just Friends, 3, all those songs on that first album. So I want to rank Musiq Soulchild albums. This was kind of tough for me because I love every single one of his albums. Honestly, like, every album is dope to me, his whole catalog. And it's crazy that when I hear Musiq Soulchild interviews, he somewhat seems to scare how his career has gone as far as his catalog. Like, a lot of music that he created wasn't really what he really wanted to do, but like, fans like me, like, we love his music, even though he said he didn't really like a lot of his music himself. But I love, everybody always requests Love, they request Crazy, Just Friends, all those songs, people still request from him. And like I said, he has a huge catalog of hit records that needs to be more noticed, as far as notoriety, in the music industry. So he's one of my favorite artists. So I'm gonna start my ranking. This is my ranking. This is not official. This is just what I feel the ranking should be. Musiq Soulchild album. So we're gonna get right into it. So he had 8 solo albums. I'm not gonna count the Hustle. I didn't really get into that persona he had as far as the Hustle, but that's one of his expressions of his artistry that he wanted to express at a moment. But I want to just get into the Musiq Soulchild albums. He had 8 albums so far. So my 8th one at number 8, it has to be, for me, Feel the Real. I think it was too many songs on the album. I really don't like double disc albums, honestly, but he had a few good songs, especially on the first disc. Feel the Real with Marsha Ambrosius, Benefits, I love that song. Sooner or Later, I love all that. And on the second disc, I like Humble Pie, Heaven Only Knows. We Go Together Now, that was a good song as well. But I feel like with a double disc album, I feel that it kind of takes away from each song, the greatness of each song. When you put so many songs on the album. It was a good album, but it was too many songs, and it was a lot of fillers on Feel the Real for me. I think it was a lot of fillers. I think he tried to introduce a lot of new producers, a lot of new songwriters that was working with him at the moment. But I put that as number 8 on my list of Musiq Soulchild albums. It wasn't as good as the rest of the albums to me, honestly. So I gotta get to my number 7. My number 7 album has to be MusiqinTheMagiq. I always get that title all messed up. MusiqinTheMagiq. I thought it was Magic in the Music, but I say MusiqinTheMagiq. That's the name of the album. It was a good album. But it didn't get a lot of attention like a lot of the other albums in his catalog. But I love a lot of these songs on this album. But it didn't get a lot of the attention, like other albums in his catalog. So I like Anything with Swiss Beats. That was a good song. Single, Say I Do. Like the whole album, my favorite song was Waiting Still. I love the beautiful melody. I like Medicine. So it was a lot of good songs. Like The Sun. He worked with Jerry Wonder, I think. I try to pronounce. He produced a lot of stuff for the Fugees. Back in the day, he produced a lot for them. A lot of their hits back in the day, the Fugees. But he produced a lot of this album, MusiqinTheMagiq. It was a good album, but it won a lot of publicity, like his other albums. So that's why I put it as number 7. It was a solid album. It had that classic Musiq Soulchild feel, but I felt he tried to experiment some as well. So I put that as number 7, MusiqinTheMagiq. So let me get to my number 6. My number 6 has to be Soulstar. That's my number 6. Soulstar. Soulstar was, I believe, his last album on Def Soul, I believe. And after that, he took a little break. But Soulstar was kind of a sleeper album as well. I had a few songs on the album, Soulstar. Of course, the single was For the Night, a dance, disco type groove. He was trying to get away from that neo soul and try to, have a big commercial song. Who Knows was a beautiful ballad. And I love the intro, Soulstar, with the sample at the beginning. That was good. But it won't quite as good as the other albums that's on the list I have, later on. But it was a solid album. It's one of his sleeper albums to me on, in his catalog. So it was a decent catalog. I had a few good, main songs on the album. But I think it's still a lot of fillers on this album to me. A lot of songs that wasn't noticed, like Womanopoly. That was a good song. And Baby Mother. But it had a lot of serious storytelling on this album as well. And he's really got into his, musical bag as far as the progressions and chords on this album. It was very dope, very neo soul. He still was in his neo soul at this time. So it was a pretty good album. So that's my number 6. So I'm gonna get to my number 5. My number 5 is Life on Earth. So this album was, I feel, experimental album. He got to really get in the studio with Warren Campbell. Warren Campbell worked with him on the 2 albums, a few albums before this, OnMyRadio and Luvanmusiq. And he was also on My Block during this time. He was on My Block Records, and they did a deal. And this was a good album. A lot of good songs. A lot of songs wasn't noticed, but the song that was noticed on the album was "I Do." That was the single from this album. But it was a lot of good album cuts. I feel it Warren Campbell's best production, but I think it was solid, as far as melodically. But I think, Warren being the business guy, head of a label, and being a producer, I think he just really, laid down some solid tracks, simple tracks for him for this album. But I wouldn't say this is one of my favorite albums, so that's why it's number 5. But it's better than the albums that I had on the list so far. But Life on Earth was very experimental, was a different side of his sound, but still had that neo soul edge, but it was taking it to a different era. It was kind of making his sound current, as far as having a different, main producer, because he worked with Carvin Higgins and Ivan Barrios on the first, few albums. So Life on Earth was a solid album. Like I said, he was with My Block during this time. So yeah, Life on Earth, I say, is number 5. And let me go to number 4. My number 4 is OnMyRadio. OnMyRadio. I said number 4 is OnMyRadio. OnMyRadio was a good album. It was a very good album, underrated album. Back again, this was the first album he actually worked with Warren Campbell on a lot of songs. Until, I love that Marvin Gaye sample. If You Leave with Mary J. Blige, that was a big song for him. He also did a lot of songs with some songs with P.J. Morton. I love Money Right. Someone was a beautiful ballad. It took you back to that old Musiq Soulchild feel with Carvin Higgins and Ivan Orthodox Barrios. He kind of reunited with them on that song. I Wanna Be had that reggae feel, produced by Warren Campbell. So Beautiful, that was a big song. And Radio, they was all big songs from this album. So yeah, it had a lot of good hit songs on this album. A lot of good songs. It was still kind of neo soul, but it was getting to that. A lot of songs on the album getting to that main R&B sound of that time on this album. So yeah, OnMyRadio was a solid album, good album. So that's my number 4. So and by the way, if you want to support me, I have Cash App, J Gills VA, Cash App $ J Gills VA. It's on the bottom of the screen if you want to support, and also please subscribe to my channel. All right, so number three. So he was on Def Soul for a while, and then he went to Atlantic, and so this was the first album on Atlantic, Luvanmusiq. Luvanmusiq introduced him to a lot of new up and coming dope songwriters and producers during that time. And Luvanmusiq was a good album. It was, like I said, the first album he had on Atlantic. It was a lot of different. This was another one of his experimental albums, working with a lot of new producers, in his catalog. Like Raphael Sadiq, he worked with him on Better Man. That was a good song. Buddy, that was a big commercial hit for him, starting off with Atlantic Records. So I believe they probably wanted him to have a big mainstream record so he can really break through, on Atlantic. Miss Philadelphia, written by Neo. That was a dope song as well. The Questions, beautiful song, written by Harold Lilly. Harold Lilly is a very underrated songwriter. He's been, he wrote a lot of great big songs. He wrote He Is for Brandy, very underrated song. And Underdogs Today, Make You Happy, Warren Campbell. Warren Campbell produced a lot of songs near the end of this album. Lullaby was good as well. Greatest Love, So it was a lot of good songs on this album. And I put it on because he was transitioning, but at the same time, it still was an amazing album. He transitioned well to Atlantic Records. And this is my third good album, because I think I listened to this album a lot. During this time I was in college. During this time I was like, finally Musiq Soulchild is coming out with a new album, because he took a little break between when he was on Def Soul and when he went to Atlantic Records. And so Luvanmusiq was very good. I believe it came out in 2007. So it was like around the end of my first year in college. So I remember this when this album came out. So I get to my top two. This was kind of tough, but I had to pick a number one. So my number two is, even though I love the first album, the second album had a lot of big songs. So I had to pick number two, was Aijuswanaseing. Even though this is like my first album I ever got, it had a lot of good songs, but as far as, the full album is concerned, it had a lot of strong singles. But as far as the whole album, near the end, it got kind of weak for me, near the end. But, the first half of the album was very strong. Girl Next Door, You and Me, Just Friends, Merry-Go-Round, 143, Love, one of his big songs, one of his biggest songs, Love. And near the end, it got kind of dry near the end of the album, but it was a good classic album. Can't believe it was like 22 years ago this album came out. So this is a huge, this was a big album at the time. New sound. I remember when I first saw, the Just Friends and heard the Just Friends, I was like, this is very different. And I'm gonna grow to love this artist, Musiq Soulchild. And so that's my number two. I Just Want to Sing. A lot of memories from this album, being middle school. Everybody sung, all the guys sung this, for assemblies and stuff like that in school, for talent shows. And so that was, and they had to hit that high note. If they didn't hit that note, they was whack. So I Just Want to Sing is my number two. And so my number one is Just Listen. Just Listen is my number one. Just Listen was an incredible sophomore. You know how they said, you have sophomore curses. As far as artists, your second album might flop. So they trying to test you, your second album, see if you're going to flop. But this was certainly a gift, sophomore gift. This second album, starting off with Newness. Newness was a dope dialogue between him and a woman. I love the conversation in that song, that neo soul groove. Where's your birthday? Y'all know the song. New, when love is all brand new. Like I love that song. Half Crazy, Religious, Stop Playing, Baby Girl. Half Crazy was a big song. Time, like every song on this album was good. Previous Cats, written by Eric Roberson. I know he wrote that first. Best Friend, Don't Change was a huge song. Ballad, that was a very good song. Showing a long-lasting, marriage relationship between a man and a woman. I love that song. Something, a cover, George Harrison from the Beatles, cover. So there's a lot of huge songs on this album. Like, to me, this is like the ultimate Musiq Soulchild album, because the whole album was so dope from top to bottom. Every song was good. And so that's my ranking of Musiq Soulchild albums. And if you have any comments on my ranking. And if you have a ranking, you can put it, below the video. But it's just what I feel, the ranking was as far as Musiq Soulchild albums. I'm a huge Musiq Soulchild fan, and I wish him the best in the future as far as his future projects. And like I said, every album is dope. This was kind of tough, to rank Musiq Soulchild albums because every album is good. But yeah, that's my ranking. Number one, Juslisen. His whole catalog is pretty good. So appreciate y'all for watching. This has been another video from your boy JG ranking the albums of Musiq Soulchild. All right, peace.